Hey everybody, and thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Talk the Talk. I trust that you'll find this interview encouraging and motivating. Again, we have another man in the motoring trade that is extremely compassionate, and he is definitely a champion for women empowerment in our trade. I'm your host. My name is 𝐤𝐥𝐸𝐬, and today's guest can be described, as I said earlier on, as a catalyst for change in our trade. He's a successful dealer principal, and he has a strong understanding of the market and is able to identify opportunity growth. He works closely with his team to develop effective sales strategies, and he is always looking for ways to improve his processes and increase efficiency. He is also a good leader as he inspires his team to work hard and achieve their best. So, without further ado, let's welcome Graham Obery, and he is the dealer principal at Haval in Edenvale. And as always, this interview is proudly brought to you by 𝐬𝐸 Solutions, MFC, and Avo by Nedbank. Hello, Graham.
Hi, Desh.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, it's really a pleasure. Thank you very much for having us, or having me on the show and representing my dealership here
No,
today.
definitely. You're welcome. As I said earlier on, it is so refreshing when we have men that want to, join our platform and champion for women in the motoring trade, because it speaks volumes just in that act. So I'm very, very grateful. And also, it's refreshing to have a young, I'm not going to give you an age, but a young dealer principal in the house today.
Oh, thank you very much. and I think it's a really important thing that these discussions happen, and I'm very happy to give my stance and give my opinion and share a little bit about what we're doing in our dealership and our dealership network as well. We have a number of dealerships, so I can give some more information on that.
Most definitely, because remember, we are very, very diverse community, a very, very diverse trade, and we need input from everybody in order for this to become a more comfortable place for women to be in. So yes, maybe let's start off by you telling us about your journey in the motoring trade.
So my journey in the motor industry, I was born into a family of motor industry people. So my father's been in the industry for, 35, 40 years now. Straight out of university, he got into the motor industry. And then in the early 2000s, we got into the used car industry. So we were selling used cars in Randburg, and that was very small. And then in 2010, we had the opportunity of buying a GWM dealership. And at the time, it was branded GWM. And at that time, GWM was such a small brand, and nothing like it is now, not like with Haval or anything like that. And then I spent some time overseas, and I came back to join the family business. Because we are a family business, we family owned, we family operated, which means that everybody in our business has the opportunity to come and speak to us. So we wanted to promote that family vibe through our dealership and that kind of stuff. So I was a DP at Cherry, and now moved across to Haval more recently, just to be close with the family business and to operate it and manage it with a very hands-on approach that we have for our dealerships.
Right, and I mean, you look so well put together, and you obviously have a team behind you, but let's bring you back down to earth, because you're so down to earth. I've gotten to know you off air or off camera. You are married to an amazing young woman. You spent time overseas, and she's Japanese, right?
Yes. Thank you for the compliment about the dress. It's just for you.
Thank you.
Yes. So
tell us a little bit about her.
Yeah. So I met my wife while I was living overseas in Japan. She was actually my manager at the time.
Nice.
So I was working for promotion, but it turns out that we had more in common, like out of work than we did in work. And then once we got married, then we separated, separate companies. And then it took a lot of convincing for me to get her to come to South Africa. She uplifted her whole life and everything she knew in Japan to come and move to South Africa for me and for my career aspirations, and she supported me every single step of the way. So I'm so incredibly lucky to have a wife like that.
Absolutely, and I think that is why you are, as I said earlier, on such a catalyst for this change and transformation that we want to see. It's because you have a strong woman by your side. Just had to put that in there, okay? So what do you love most about representing the brands that you represent? I know it's Haval, it's Omoda, am I pronouncing that right? And then you have Mahindra and Cherry.
Yes, okay. So I think what's so amazing about representing these brands is that they're new brands and that they're emerging in the market. And we have the opportunity to look at what's changing in the market, to look at the kind of different type of buying profiles that we get.
Right.
And we've seen that throughout our brands. We've seen it in Cherry, we've seen it at Haval, we've seen it with Omoda, that the buyers are more informed. So I recently delivered a car yesterday to a lady. She's, I think, in her early 60s. And one of her things was that this is the first car that she's bought with working and opening her own business. And then having female sales executives to identify with those kind of sales is amazing, you know. We're getting a lot more women coming into the dealerships that know more about our brands than their husbands do. And the husband takes a step back and the wife's going, this is how much power it's got.
I love it.
This is the colors, this is the model that I want. And you know, it's changed that whole buying profile and it's changed the whole dynamic of buying in a dealership.
Absolutely, and that's what we try. That is why we are here. This is what we're trying to do: educate women in terms of what suits them best. But you said something, and a big smile stayed on my face for the entire answer. You know, your answer. It was something about you delivered the car. Did you deliver that car personally?
So I was involved in the delivery process. I did have to take a step back while they were doing the handover and everything. But it's something that we try to do, is be hands-on as dealer principal. And as a team. So everybody's involved. Every day we're talking with the sales staff, we're talking with the customers, and we try and communicate with the customers directly. You know, people like to know who owns the business or who manages the business. So if there's an issue, they can call us, and then we can speak to them directly and have them sit in our office.
I absolutely love that open door policy. It really, really is very refreshing. How do you encourage your female staff at the dealership, you know, not just to move up the ranks, but also to become progressive in that position that they're in?
So I think the motor industry as a whole has always been this male-dominated thing.
It still is,
And it still is, but I think it's so important to have stronger female representatives within the dealership, because they can identify with the people that are coming in to buy it. You know, we have single moms buying cars, we have divorcees buying cars, we have women that know more about the cars than their husbands. So it's important for our staff and our sales executives to feel comfortable that, you know, they have the opportunity as well to go into a sales manager position or to take a dealer principal position. And there's a lot of female dealer principals in the dealership network now, and we see more and more of them, which I think is great. And I think it's great. It's a great motivation for our sales staff.
Definitely. Now, Graham, we've, I think, engaged, or not myself, it's the first time I'm meeting you, but we've engaged as a team with your dealership on multiple occasions, and you've always been, and your dad has always been welcoming, you know, to our team and our initiatives. Why so? How do you feel about, you know, these women empowerment initiatives? That there's plenty of them actually that we're running, which is obviously powered by Nedbank. How do you feel about this?
I think it's so important, and I think that it's such a great opportunity for sales executives, and specifically female sales executives, to know that there's other people and that there's other companies out there supporting them, and that have identified them and said, listen, we see you, we see what you're doing, and we want to support you. We've got some sales executives in our company that started right from the bottom. You know, they weren't sales executives ever, and they've slowly, not through our dealership, but through the dealership network, been promoted and promoted. And the one lady, when she joined our dealership, she clapped it out of the park completely. She beat all the boys, she beat all the old sales guys.
Love it.
Which was amazing.
That's amazing. It's like I said, when a man can sit here and validate or, verify that women are doing well in those positions, and not just women sit here. I interview obviously more women on our platform, but when a man can come and say, yes, that's right. She has taken #1 spot, and she can do well, not just in a sales executive position, but throughout the spectrum of retail in the motoring trade. I want to ask you a question, but there's a quote here that literally just kind of grabbed me. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world, and it's so important for our ladies to know that we should never be entitled, because this was a male-dominated field, or is still a male-dominated field. We need to work equally as hard to achieve what it is that we want to achieve. Entitlement should not happen. It's so important to learn from our male counterpart on what it is that we want to be successful at. And I said it before so many times, that it's these little accomplishments that happens every day that paves the way to that success. Having said that, how can men become more prominent and more active in advocating for women equality in our motoring trade?
I think what's really important is that the women in the industry feel the support from the men, but also at times it's important for the men to take a step back and let the women or the females in the industry represent themselves to a certain degree, and that their skill or their performance is solely based on them as a person, not necessarily a female, but them as a person and how good they are at what they do. And then the man can take a step back, or the male in the industry can take a step back, but still have that support. And that those people or the females in the industry know that that support is there, and that it is recognized based purely on their skill level.
Absolutely. Tell us a little bit more about where you're situated.
As in Edenvale? Yeah, so
you have a few, right?
Yeah, so within our kind of group of companies or group of dealerships that we have, we've got 3 dealerships in Edenvale. We've got Haval Edenvale, we've got Mahindra Edenvale, and we've got Cherry Edenvale. And then we do have Mahindra East Ram Mall. In Boxburg.
Which is a dear friend of mine. Hi, Warren Olsen. Please watch this interview and share it. I have known him for ages as well. It's an amazing dealership as well.
Thank you.
So, is there anything else that you'd like to add in terms of, encouraging young ladies and women that are watching this interview to come into our trade and to explore the opportunities that are available to them?
Yeah, I think it's really exciting for the industry to have new blood coming in, and I don't think you necessarily have to have experience in the motor industry. And I think that's an important thing for a lot of people that are interested in the motor industry to know, is that if you want to become a sales executive, there's avenues to come in, and you don't necessarily need the experience in the motor industry. You just need to know how to sell, you need to know how to communicate with your customers, and you need to be effective and efficient with your paperwork and communication skills. Then there's other areas of opportunity in the motor industry. So it's not just sales, and that's the thing that people think of all the time. There's things in marketing, there's things in the finance side of things. There's so many different avenues to enter the motor industry, and the businesses are really, really big businesses. It's not this idea of a really small dealership on a corner. These are multi-million rand dealerships that have different avenues. So it's important to know that, and I think it's important for people to experience more of what happens in the motor industry.
Absolutely. And just on the tail end of what you said, I must just reiterate that there's plenty of opportunity. Graham mentioned finance and marketing, but the numbers, if we want to balance these scales, are needed in after sales. In our network alone, we have hundreds of service managers and advisors, workshop managers. We've got engineers at the OEMs. There's plenty. Technology is now allowing women to explore those opportunities and to just follow your passion. So go for it, and it's gentlemen like this that we appreciate, that brings light to what it is that women can do in the trade. So I thank you very much for joining us, and I know we're going to do a lot more work together. Thank you very much, Graham.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Viewers, we would like to thank you for your continued support and encourage you to like and share our content. Our non-profit companies, the Motoring Woman of the Year Awards, powered by MFC and 𝐬𝐿 by Nedbank, and the Talk Studios, sponsored by Seriti Solutions and 𝐬𝐿 by Nedbank, are platforms aimed at empowering, uplifting, and celebrating the women of motoring South Africa. We are not just telling stories, we are changing lives. If you are searching for a new or pre-owned vehicle, please visit www.auto.avo.africa. We have a wide range of vehicles on sale for you to choose from, and we only advertise on behalf of reliable and trustworthy MFC accredited dealerships. This car listing portal is user-friendly, and you can also find vehicle reviews, car maintenance tips, and automotive advice, all courtesy of Talk the Talk Studios. Okay, so I think we talked a lot about education and making sure that you're knowledgeable. They say knowledge is power. Just want to leave you with this quote: the learning process continues until the day you die. So ladies, it's true that reaching your full potential can increase your chances of success, but that doesn't mean success will come easy. Achieving success typically requires a combination of hard work, perseverance, and dedication. Reaching your full potential involves developing and using your skills and talents to the best of your ability, and it requires putting in effort. And I always say this: effort is between you and you. So seeking out new opportunities for growth and taking risks to pursue your goals and dreams is extremely important. Success will come easier once you function at your full potential. And with that, would like to remind you that the question should never be who's going to let me. It should always be who's going to stop me.